everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Exploration of Roles with Nocode Techies. Today, we're talking with Emmanuel Baah, who is a senior product designer at Oyster, my very good friend, and we'll be learning a lot about product design from him and basically hope to share how you can make a transition into product design if that's something you've been thinking about. So, before we start, Emma, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and it's basically to give us an idea of who you are. So, the first question is when you end emails, what's your favorite email sign off?
Cheers.
Cheers. Why are you a British man? To be honest,
I learned it from my boss. I learned it from my boss, and yeah,
okay.
it stuck with me.
To be honest, I'm making fun of you right now, but I also really use cheers a lot.
See?
The
Are
hypocrisy
you
is
British?
real. Yeah, I alternate between like warm regards and cheers. So I agree with that. It's a good one. It's a classic one, right? It's not too formal, not too informal. I like it.
Yeah. Yes.
Number two, rapid fire. What is your favorite morning beverage? Are you a coffee drinker, hot cocoa? What is that?
Can I say banku? You'll be shocked.
It's not a beverage. Listen, I respect it. For those of you who don't know, uncle, it's basically a maize meal from Ghana that is like super starchy and heavy, and
Heavy.
it's in no way a beverage. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Let me explain a little, right? Because the thing is, my creative juices come very early in the morning, like from 4 a.m. to 9. Most of the time, I'm done with work.
Right.
So by the time it's 9 a.m., like I have zero energy left in me to do anything. So
So
I
you
might
need
as well just
uncle. See, I'll
anyway.
accept your explanation, but it's like, bro, that's not a beverage.
We have to make do.
Fair enough. This last question that I have for you might be a Banku question as well, because the question is, what is your favorite season of the year? And I say this knowing very well that in Ghana, we literally have the same weather all year round. It's just at some point it's dry, at some point it's wet.
Well, so I might say wet season. Yeah, I might say wet season
So
simply
when it's
because
rainy,
you
you
can't
like
stand there.
the
Yeah, it gets a little too hot in the
yeah.
dry season. Yeah, I
I
prefer
mean,
wet. It's mild.
well, yeah, I hear you. I mean, we still live in Ghana where every place has AC, but it can get really hot outside.
Yeah,
So I respect that. I don't like the rainy season because like, well, first of all, the floods, but also I'm not a fan of the cold.
really.
No, I do not like being cold at all. I prefer to be warm, go out with shorts, like that's my vibe. So having to like
Ah,
wear layers and layers, like in the UK, for instance, is not my vibe at all.
half. Oh,
That's good to know.
because I barely get cold weather
Yeah,
where I am. Yeah,
you prefer
I
it when it
prefer that.
happens.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you for that. For our viewers, if you were hoping to crack Ima's passwords, I hope I've given you three good answers that you can possibly.
Sorry. You are going to try too many times.
Okay, so let's get a bit now into like the crux of the conversation. You're a senior product designer. What does that mean?
Hmm. So I would say being a senior product designer, the thing that stands out the most or um is like most important is ownership.
Mhm.
And when I say ownership, I mean being able to take an initiative that you're supposed to work on from the beginning and then seeing it through all to the end with little or minimal guidance. So when it comes to product design, there are different things that happen. Like there are different people you work with. So you have to communicate with a lot of people. You have to make a lot of decisions that you are going to be responsible for. You being able to take that responsibility to make these decisions that you know are going to impact the product in the long run. If you are able to like get to the point where these decisions are things that you can do on your own with zero or little guidance, then you can start looking at yourself in the
in the
direction or
senior
in
title.
the eyes of a senior. I mean,
No, I think that's a really good way to differentiate between like being, let's say, like a junior to mid-level to being a senior, that level of
yeah,
ownership. You're accountable for the decisions that you made and the impact that it makes either on the product, on the customer,
yes,
on the user, right? So
yeah.
that's really good to hear. But now let's go a step lower than that. What is product design as a whole?
Hmm. So I chat a lot with ChatGPT, my very good friend.
Good.
It has this analogy that it uses, and I think it's a very good explanation of what product design is holistically. So let's look at this, right? Let's take a restaurant kitchen, for example, right? Before you build or design a restaurant kitchen, you want to understand the people you are building it for, the people who are going to use the restaurant. So that can be a chef, right? The cooks, like they are the primary people who are going to use it. You need to understand who they are, right? How they think, how they work, like those things. You need to understand what the kitchen is going to be used for. So you can look at the dishes that are going to be cooked in the kitchen. Um, like these are you need to you look at this, you look at the people, you look at the foods that are going to be cooked in there. Then now you come back and then you also look at what the business needs, right? So the business being the restaurant here, what are they usually looking out for? What do they want to be able to achieve with the kitchen or with the business? They want to be able to serve their customers as fast as they can. They want consistent taste in the food that they
Yeah.
deliver. So you being the designer, you're going to look at what the business is trying to achieve. You're going to look at what the chefs, the cooks, or everyone who uses the kitchen would typically need to be able to do. And then now you lay out the kitchen in a way that makes the work that they do efficient, right? You make sure that while there is that efficiency baked in it, the company or the restaurant can also deliver at the pace that they want to be able to deliver. Now you balancing out the ability for the chefs, the cooks to be able to cook efficiently, and then the business also being able to achieve their goals. You balancing these two things out is what product design is about. So you use this to create a solution that works for both ends. So the user being the chef, the cook, and then the business, the restaurant, right? Balancing out what they need to create something that works for both of them is what we call product design. So in a nutshell, it's basically just balancing user needs and business goals to create a workable solution. Yeah.
Honestly, this is such a light bulb moment for me. It's a really great way of explaining it because I could also see it's a really good analogy, like being able to build a system that works, that is also like visually appealing and like has a good user experience and has a good like interface for the end user, but also making sure that it has the like it fulfills the business goals. That is
Exactly.
that's amazing because also
Yeah.
I think go ahead.
You finish because I want to add something to
That
it.
this also explains exactly the business contribution that the product design like function brings to the org. And I think if anybody was wondering like what is my contribution going to be if I join a product design team, like this is so clear and keep it in your mind for your interview.
Yeah, because most of the time, a lot of the trainings that people get, a lot of the things that people read on do not touch on the business aspects of things. But you need to understand that as a designer, the only reason you have a job, first and foremost, is because a business is willing to put in money for you to be able to do what you need to do. Right. And then the other thing here is primarily you are designing for people to use. So they are like the first point of contact that you'd have to consider. But after you consider them, now you need to care about the person or the entity that is responsible for the experience that you are trying to bring forth. So then you also need to understand what they need and then marry that with what the people also expect to use. then you can have something great, something
I love
delightful.
talking to experts in their fields because obviously I'm not a product designer, but this is such a good, I'm just a nerd about education. This is such a really good thing because it's like really, it's new knowledge and knowledge put in a very good and succinct way that I think everybody can understand. So thank you so much for that. And it makes me happy to ask the next question, which is, what was your path into product design? Like, maybe you can tell me your path, the typical path, and how that marries or like by deviates from each other.
Okay. So let me start with mine because I mean, it's me. It's the experience I can speak to
Yeah.
the most. So mine, I don't think mine is very different from the paths that people take to get into product design. That's like if you already had or you've already had an educational background in design or any related field, right? I went to school to do my BSc in information technology.
Right.
So that means I was supposed to turn out a developer or system
Yeah.
admin and
Yeah.
networking or something. Yeah, I had to do something highly technical or backend, right? But
Right.
in my second year, I applied for a role in the school's creative department as a graphic design assistant. So yeah, because I already had love for beautiful graphics and like nice applications and all of that, I felt like I had to, and I did a little bit of drawing growing up. So I've always had that
Right.
art thing
Talent
in
has
me. Yeah.
success.
Yes, exactly. I've always had that in me. So I just in level 200, I did the graphic design assistant. I assumed that role, did it for a year. Then I think I finished off my final year as a full-time graphic designer in an actual company. Yeah.
Wow, that's so good.
Yeah, in an actual company. So while in the company, I already had colleagues there who were my mates from school. They were developers and all, and I was in a different departments doing graphic design. So I saw an opportunity to work with them to start designing interfaces for the software they were building because there were no designers at the time on their team. So it's like if I already have a graphic design background, I know how to create posters, flyers, logos. Then I could also look into doing posters for apps. Let's
Right.
call it that. Flyers for apps.
Yeah.
Then
Okay.
yeah, so I start doing a little bit of that, and then eventually I transitioned from being a graphic designer into a UI UX designer. Mind you, I said UI UX. So I transitioned from graphic into UI UX, and then
What's the
the
difference?
next couple of years, what's the difference? I'll come to that. So the next couple of years, I worked in agencies that did projects for companies in HR tech, health tech, crypto, like in those industries, right? So then fast forward 2022, then I see an opportunity to join Oyster as a product designer. And then we are here. So the difference here between UI UX, which was what I did most of my years in the agency and the initial company that I started my product design journey. Now I'll call it that. The difference between those years and my years at Oyster now is back then we did not really consider the business goals, right? They were not as important as designing experiences that were good for people to use in my experience as a designer in those companies, right? So um, there were times we do lots of tests, design experiences, we send it out, we find two, three, four people, they work with it. Oh yeah, they can move from point A to point B. That's great. That means the experience works, right? But what we were not always considering was if they were able to move from point A to point B, um, how that was going to translate into an impact for the business. Yeah, would the business be able to make money from that? Is it compliance with what the laws of the country expect? Like all of these things are things that we were not considering. All we were concerned about was people being able to take it. They look at it, oh, this is beautiful. Oh, I can click on the button, it works, great. Then
Yeah.
okay, we have a good experience. But now getting to Oyster, it's a whole different conversation, right? We are more concerned about what the business wants to be able to achieve in, say, in a quarter, in the next year, in the next 2 years, right? There is a roadmap of activities or features that we want to work on that ties in with features that we expect to work on in 2 years, in 3 years. And knowing, like having a holistic view of all of these things that the business would want to be able to do, which is definitely informed by data that they've gathered from research into like how the customers of the products that we work on use the system. Uh, it changes the perspective for us. So now you know that as much as you care about the people who are going to use it, now you need to also care about the business making money. So you have to always find the right balance between like these two. And then, yeah, so that is when it became a product design. At that point, you are designing products. You're not designing just experiences because products are supposed to be sold. Products are supposed to make money, right? So in that sense, now you need to consider the experience and the business. Uh, then
Right.
I became a product designer. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, this is really, really good. First of all, thank you for explaining the differences between like the UX and the UI side, because what I understand as a non-product designer is that when you're thinking about the UX UI side of things, your core focus is the user. Your core focus is like, first of all, making it beautiful, making it like user friendly, making sure that people are not experiencing like fatigue just navigating your app and stuff like that. And now being a product designer, you have to think about it from a bit more of like a bird's eye view to see
Yep.
not just the user, but also like the provider who is the company you're working for and what is their goal and how do you marry those things in a, in
Yes.
still like a good to use like experience for the user. And I think that's a really interesting perspective. But more to your process, you went through like an IT, like a formal IT degree, and then
Yeah.
because you had the IT degree and the raw artistic talent, you were able to add that with your experience of like working as a graphic designer and marry all of that into a more should I say software related like role, right? So would you say that the IT the formal IT degree was like a critical part of making this path? Or do you think that people can come from more of a creative angle and still make their way into the product design sphere?
If I'm being honest, yeah. Right from level 200, I stopped going to class. I stopped going for lectures.
Please don't encourage like
I'm sorry. Please don't do that. It's not good for you. Don't. If you know you want to have a career in the field that you are studying for, please go for lectures. But for me, I had interest in different areas, different fields. So what I did was to double down on those areas that were not touched on by the classes that I went to. And um, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time from you. So you have to always find like that balance to be able to do the things you love and then the things that you go to school
What's
for.
some of
So
those things? Like,
uh,
things that helped you hone this other skill that is not because it's really hard. I think even creative art classes, like it's really hard to teach like design. I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to speak for the lecturers who teach design, but I would imagine that it would be really hard to teach design in a more structured way. So like
yeah,
how did you sort of find that training or the skill development outside of, the classroom?
classroom. So I remember very well that before, even before school, yeah, I had a group of friends who were very much interested in arts, in design. So I would always associate myself with them. We share resources, we do stuff, we get feedback from each other, we help each other in on projects. Like, so I have a flyer, oh, I've done this, it looks beautiful. What do you think? Oh, I think you can explore colors in this spectrum. You can look at this person who did this thing this way. So point is, I found a community, right? I put myself in a position where the people around me were heavily design oriented, right? I also like when to look for resources that were going to help me hone my design skills, because in the end it was really just at that point it was really just an interest thing for me. And if you want to learn things that you love, you go all out for it. So I made sure that I never dimmed the passion, and then I surrounded myself with things that would influence or would help me like level up on my interests basically. So it was more of things like that than finding structure, because um, it's very difficult to find structure where you don't know where to look. It's very difficult to find a structure. So I guess in the process of learning all of these things, I kind of created a structure that worked for me, and that would be the community I found myself in, the resources that I put together while trying to study, the people that I spoke to get feedback from. You could consider that mentorship, but at that point we were all peers. So I mean, your peer
Yeah,
can be your
mentee.
mentor, but
Yeah,
at that point it was limited knowledge for me. So they were all peers that, but now I look at them, I'm like, okay, all these guys were my mentors, right?
yeah,
In that sense.
yeah.
It's more creating a structure that works for you by doing some of these things, and then I'm sure you'd be able to like find that sweet spot that helps you. So
No, I love that. And I think something that like runs through that I want to also call out is doing, right? Like in all these things you were doing designs and getting feedback. You were like doing the designs when you got the feedback to make sure that it's better than what you did before. Like you were doing the thing to make sure that you get better at it. And
yeah,
so that's one thing that you cannot take out. Like make sure you're doing the thing. Um,
practice, practice, practice.
Thank you. Practice, practice, practice. So now let's talk a little bit about like tooling. So you're currently a designer, so you definitely like know what are the tools that are common in the design space, even if it's not tool that you use only, but like what are maybe some tools that people who are trying to get into design should start playing with, even if they're not using it like on a day to day.
Um, so I think it is design is very broad. Product design is very broad, right? So um, if we have to talk about tooling, we would have to look at the different areas of product design that the tools are used for, and where each person's interest lies, to know what tool would make sense or would resonate the best. So I think uh, initially when you are learning product design, like for most people, for a lot of people that I have spoken to, who took the path that I took. We are more concerned with UI design than we are concerned with the different aspects of products. You are going to do all of them, but there is something that is fundamental or is core to your values or your process as a designer, and that is like where you have the most vertical. So for me, which is UI design, um, Figma is like that the go-to tool that you need to play with, or you need to explore. And it's even the same for literally like every step, or every step in the product design process. Because even when you do research, which I'll be laying out the process, when you do research, you need to organize the feedback that you get, right? You need to make sense and synthesize the data that you collect. All of these things are things that you can do in Figma. Figma comes with FigJam, which is like a brainstorming tool. It helps you can write and do all the scribbling and stuff in there. And then we have Figma itself, which is like the design tool that helps you create the interfaces that you need to create. So like from start to finish, Figma is like the one tool that you need to know. But then when you want to get deeper into the different areas, like user research, exploration, like testing. For user research like this, and user research and testing, you can look at Maze. Maze is a user testing tool that helps you, like if you highlight like a flow or an experience that you want people to test and then get feedback on the usability of it. Maze is like the best tool that you want to look at. Yeah, and we have Pendo. Yeah, Pendo is also a tool that helps you gather feedback, right? We also have Mixpanel. Mixpanel is a tool that you use to monitor how people um, uh, play with your experiences or use the products that you work on to get insights into
Wow.
like how people use,
Tracking
to
real
inform
time.
their decisions. Yeah, in real time. So some are recorded. Like all of yeah, some tools are recorded. Some give you heat maps. So heat maps are like
Like,
you
yeah.
see them in maybe red, green, blue. So like the areas where people interact with, they are always highlighted in specific colors. So where
Right.
you see like a very huge like red, then that means a lot of people use that area, right? So like it gives you insights into like how these tools how people interact with your product. But the first and foremost tool that you always need to pay attention to or you need to look at is Figma, which is like the tool that you ultimately use to create the interfaces that you do. So yeah,
This is very interesting.
there are a few others that I can put together. I can put
Yeah.
together a lesson, share
No, we would
with them with.
appreciate it. We'll take the list and we'll add it to like the description box, so that's not a problem. But it's for me, it's very interesting because I'm in product marketing, so it means that I work in product design because I get like screenshots from them and like PDFs that I can use in my comms. And then I also work
Mm.
with like graphic design. And so it's interesting to me that when you mention the tools, like Adobe was nowhere to be found, right? And that that tells you the difference because like I know that product designers do not play with Figma. Like Figma is like bread and butter. And I think that's something to call out that yes, you might be really good with like all of these other tools, but if you're trying to get into the product building side of design, you need to be thinking about Figma, be thinking about ways to get feedback from users, from product managers, from like, everybody that you're working with and all of that. So that's
Yeah,
like, yeah.
to highlight something, Figma is like the best tool for collaborative design. Let me call it that. That being in product design, you most likely will never work alone. If
Yeah.
you are going to work on a product that is going to be shipped and going to be used by users, you are most likely never to work alone. There are times you can design and build your own thing. If you are that kind of person, great. If you are coming from a tech background, like a coding background, you can do that. But if not, um, Figma allows you to work with different people from different fields. And this is very key to your process as a designer. So it's important that you know how to use Figma so that you know how you can manage the collaboration between these people. And then also find your own little place in Figma to do your own thing. Yeah. So work as a solo designer, but then also as a team player. Yeah.
I love this
That's
because my next question was like, who are your main collaborators? Like, so who are you? So it just kind of segues into that because I just mentioned
yeah.
product managers, but I mean, product managers are there. You have product marketers like me who are there asking questions. Is this the final design? But what other people are you constantly like working with?
So I'm constantly working with we have product owners, we
Oh,
have product managers, we have developers, um, we have product marketers from time to time as well because they interact with the users as much as we product designers also do. So yeah, we work with them. They have a lot of data for us. Um, Sometimes you can have your stakeholders, so your clients, the owners of the product. Like apart from the product owner who plays a product owner role, we can have people who
like the
pay for the
founder
work
or
that's done.
CEO
Those
or
people might
right.
also want to have, yeah, those people might also want to have access to the work that you do to share their feedback as early as possible. And it's very important because as a designer, you need to have as much context as possible very early in the process before you get to the final designs of your UI. So yeah, these are people that we usually work with, but it's usually the developer, the product owner, the product manager, and then the product marketers. I don't know if I've missed anyone, but it's most of the time
I think
people
that's
that
yeah,
I work with.
who have product before their name that are very interested in these things.
I guess so.
I'm going to ask you my
Yeah.
last one question, and that's like, what are top 5 skills, or even 3 skills that you think are very relevant to a product designer?
Mm, so top 5 skills that are relevant to a product designer. I would say the first one, problem solving. Problem solving skills, like very important. You need to have a good sense of communication and collaboration.
It's true.
That is yeah, that's another one. Your visual design skills, very important, right?
That's
And
the
then
core of what you're doing.
as I actually wanted to put that last. Like I have like a lot of skills that I feel like you need to pay attention to, right? In my head, I have a lot of it. So I'm trying to like filter out that list. But problem solving is like one huge one. Empathy, yes.
Yep.
You have to have empathy, like one empathy for yourself as a designer. Very important. People tend to overlook that. And it worries you in the end, right? And then you have to have empathy for your users as well because they use your product. They do not think like you. They do not behave like you. They don't use the product the same way you would want to use
And
it. So
it's
you have to, yes, exactly. You have to have a lot of empathy for them before you design and after you design,
yeah.
right? Because users will show you that like you've done incredible work, but it's really not that incredible. So that is a skill that you need to hone, empathy. You need to have you need to pay a lot of attention to detail as well. Attention to detail. It's very important when you are doing your visual design stuff. And sometimes it's not even just visual design. You have a lot of context that you need to read through. And you need to make sure that every single thing that you read through to understand what needs to be done, to understand the user's need, you pay attention to them, right? So attention to detail is also another one. And
When,
adaptability.
oh, sorry. And
I can
adaptability.
I
That's
can keep going on.
mentioned the
Keep going on and
one
on.
is problem
Yeah.
solving. Two
Yes.
is communication and collaboration. Three
Yes.
is like the crux of the matter, your visual design skills.
Mhm.
Four, empathy for your user, but also for yourself.
Yes.
Five, attention to detail.
Yeah.
And six is be adaptable because things might change from the need,
Yes.
from the products, from everywhere, and it might
Right.
all come and like bamboozle you.
Yes. Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that I think those are really good. My final question will be, what is like a really good book, a really good YouTube, a really good influencer people should follow? Like, what's a really good thing that if people wanted to start today, you would recommend that they should look at to be good at product design?
Okay, so this book, The Design of Everyday Things, I think it's by Don. Give me if I get it wrong. Let me check. The Design of Everyday Things. Yes, it's by Don Norman. Don Norman is like the godfather of
Product
the
design.
yes, of design in general, actually, of design in general. Yeah. So, the book, the design of everyday things is one. There is another one that you might want to pay attention to, but this particular one comes as you progress in your design journey, which is still like an artist.
Still like an artist,
No
amazing.
one is asking you to be a thief, please.
No, this
But
is
still, it's a book by Austin Kleon. Yeah, he has I think he has a number of them. Still like an artist is one. Show your work is also another one. And then he has another one that does keep going. So you just get the collection from Justin Cleon.
that's good. I'm
That
gonna
is,
all the
yeah,
books
it's
you
an
mentioned also in the description.
yeah.
So don't worry if you didn't pick it up. Um, but yeah, that's really good. I wanted to ask before we go, do you have any last words for budding product designers?
Last words for product designers, pattern product designers, or designers who want to get into people who want to
Oh,
get into product design.
yeah,
For anyone who
let's get
would
into
want to
product
have.
design. Yeah,
So I think the first and most important thing here is discipline. It cuts across. It's not just for design, right? And it's like whenever you pick up something new that you want to learn, there is always a learning curve, right? To any new thing that you come across. So you need to have a lot of discipline to be able to get to the point where um product, you begin to design products like Instagram, you begin to design products like Twitter. Like it's it's so much learning that needs to happen. This is not to scare anyone because it's just as enjoyable. The process is just as enjoyable as it says when you're learning, like when you need to learn, right? You need to have a lot of discipline to be able to like learn at the pace that is required, right?
Right.
You need to be very curious, like constantly like asking questions, constantly observing, like very observant, constantly observe, make sure that like every single thing you interact with, you are trying to make sense of the back end, the structure behind it, why things are placed the way they are placed, right? Like uh, you you need to become that kind of person, right? Because it takes a while to get to the point where you can call yourself a very good designer. You can be a designer, but
Or
are you good?
senior product designer.
So like you need, yeah, like I would say for you to become a designer, a good designer, you need to be very disciplined, you need to be curious, you need to be very observant, and you need to be very empathetic. Super important because at the end of the day, as even though the business is going to pay you so much money, the business wants to make so much money. It's still people who are going to interact with your work. So
Yeah.
you need to make sure that every single thing that you do is for them, right? Is for them. It has their best interests at heart. And never put yourself first. You are never the designer. You are never the user. You are never going to be the user. You are only a designer.
Yeah.
So you need to make
Wow,
sure that
that's
you have
amazing.
that and build that empathy as well for them. And then I'm sure you'll be good to go.
Yeah, no, that's really good final words. And like, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. The Nocode Techies community is very, very grateful. And we'll come back to you when we have like more questions from like the community.
Definitely. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah. And I think I would want to put together some resources and then share with you. But if anything, any let me add this to that. I think everyone who wants to get into design should pay a lot of attention to their environment, right? So you need to make sure what the things that I did for myself when I started out with graphic design. I think we need to do that a lot. So lots of mentorship, look for a community to work with, to be a part of like-minded people who are constantly care about the things that you want to care about, right? You need to find an accountability partner as well, like someone that you can hold. Something about accountability partners, right?
Yeah,
So like it's also important that uh designers, like anyone who's getting into design, gets an accountability partner because um you need to be held accountable for the things that you need to focus on to
yeah,
be able to be good. And this is even beyond design. In everything that you want to do, you need to have like some form of accountability, whichever with form it may come. But for design, it is, pardon me.
especially if it's a new skill.
Yes, especially if it's a new skill. So for design, it's very good if uh you get an accountability. It doesn't have to be someone who is already like out there or up there. It can be your peers. It could be someone who is also just starting out. Point is to get someone who would keep you on your toes and make sure that you do the things that you say you're going to do. Otherwise, it's very easy to just sway off and then you stop doing the things that you need to do. And then also the bits I said about the communities, we have a few in Ghana even. If you want to join, there's UX Ghana, yeah. We have Design
App
Junkies.
or WhatsApp or Discord, like how do you join?
So I know UX Ghana has a Telegram channel, so you can join. Yeah, you can join on Telegram. It used to be on WhatsApp. Design Junkies, I'm not so sure, but it's been run by a few of my friends who are like, yeah, a few of my friends who started it. So uh, Design Junkies also want to look at. I think there are a few other communities also. There are Nigeria is actually very heavy in design, so
Thank
there are
you.
a few.
That's good.
Yeah. It's a good name. Then you can also look to Nigeria, and then find some communities. But the whole point of this is to not uh, be alone, because it tends to be very, very lonely when you are starting out. Like you
Yeah.
have no one to look at, no one to help you make sense of the things you're looking at. Like it gets very difficult, very challenging, very lonely. And this is not to scare anyone, but just
Yeah.
listen and do these things, and I'm sure you'd be very fine, because in the end we all want to be very good at the things that we want to do, and we
Yeah.
want to be, yeah, good at the things we love. So these are like a few hacks that you can consider